Okay, thanks everyone for coming. My name's Deb Kemp. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator at Northern Beaches Council. And this is part of a series of webinars that Council's partnering with the ATO to host in the lead up to October tax time. So a range of topics to help small businesses get ready for tax. And also we appreciate it's with an unprecedented time just now, a lot of people working from home, working in different environments. So it's a great opportunity to really ask some of those slightly more specific tax questions that you may be experiencing just now. So I'm going to hand over to Lyndon just now from the ATO to do the formal introduction and then to run through her presentation. So I'll speak to you all again shortly soon.
Thanks, Deb. Really appreciate that. And a massive thank you to Northern Beaches Council for hosting these webinars because they are full of information, and hopefully you're going to walk away today feeling a little bit more informed and if anything, a little bit more confident with what you're doing with your business. So my name is Lyndon Regina. I'm coming to you from the Australian Taxation Office, and I'll be presenting budgeting for your commitments. So look, often we come to these types of forums and we think, oh, look, I could have asked a question. And often we don't ask a question because the question comes along a little bit later. So look, I'm just going to place my email address into the chat box for you. Just a quick reminder that if you do choose to be on video cam, this session is being recorded. So if you choose to turn your video cam off, that's your choice, but just letting you know, you might be out there on the web if you leave your cam on. Okay, so my email address is in the chat box. Now look, I'm just about to place another sort of big, large chunk of information in there as well. The ATO has so many different mechanisms to be able to support you, whether it be in payment arrangements, deferring activity statements, perhaps applying to get your pay-as-you-go instalment credits back for the financial year. We can remit penalties, we can remit general interest. So there's lots of different things that we can do for you. And lastly but not leastly, ATO community. So at the bottom of that information that I've placed into the chat box, you can go to ATO community via ato.gov.au, and on the landing page there's a blue bar at the top of the landing page of the ATO website, and it has the words ATO community there. So more often than not, your questions have already been answered, okay? So to save you your valuable time, head to ATO community, place in your question using keywords, and I can guarantee you'll get your answers come up in a nice, timely and efficient fashion. And it'll save you time of having to ring the ATO. Also, if you do choose to ring us, look, we are open on a Saturday at the moment, but that is subject to change. So if you do need to speak with us, we're more than happy to speak with you. Just double check our ATO website just to make sure that we are still open on those Saturdays. And to do that, you will just head to the Contact Us link on ato.gov.au. Okay. Let's get on into this webinar. So firstly, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, waters and the community. I'd like to pay my respects to them, their cultures, elders, past and present. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at identifying your business activities that trigger commitments, knowing the important dates for commitments, gathering your figures, setting aside funds and paying on time. And obviously during COVID, if you can't pay on time, we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail there. Now look, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate, come through that via one eye on the chat box and one eye on the presentation. So I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions today. I'm unable to provide specific advice. However, I can provide general advice. And if I can see that your question deserves a little bit more attention, I'm going to ask you to copy your question and send it to me via email, because then I'll be able to give it a little bit more specialised attention. Okay, so let's kick this webinar off. Let's have a look at the 5 steps to meeting your regular financial commitments. So, which option best describes your business? And as I said, come on down via the chat box. Do you often, perhaps you're often unsure what bills are due and when, Sometimes you find that you haven't put enough money aside for the bills. Perhaps you don't always pay your bills on time. Maybe on time. I'll tell you something, I try and avoid those late fees. So we always try and make sure our bills are paid on time. But sometimes, you know, that's life and you can't do it. So don't be afraid to come down via the chat box. Let me know how you're feeling about your bills at the moment. Are you feeling overloaded? And, you know, perhaps there might be some things that we can help you with from an ATO perspective. Okay, so let's talk about business activities that trigger obligations. So what you want to look at, the obligations are triggered by things like employing workers, so pay-as-you-go, withholding, superannuation, payroll tax, fringe benefit tax, workers' compensation and long service leave. Perhaps you might be registered for GST, so regularly lodging a BAS and regularly sending GST collected to the ATO, that can be another trigger. Registering a business name or re-registering the business name. Perhaps you needed to buy properties, you've got land tax, stamp duty and rates that may go with those triggers. Maybe you've got loans, you've got loan repayments, they're more trigger dates, and other professional memberships such as insurance, subscriptions, state or local fees or licenses. So look, some of these examples, they involve cash that's not yours. So for example, GST, pay-as-you-go withholding and superannuation. Many of these are regular, which means that you're going to have a legal obligation to pay them. So if these regular commitments and examples of cash that is not yours, this is what we're going to focus on today. So it's worth going into a bit more detail about paying tax on your profits. You thought about how and when you'll pay your tax on your profits. So do you know about the pay-as-you-go instalment system and how it can actually benefit you? So a pay-as-you-go instalment system is you put your tax away throughout the year, so you're not faced with a massive tax bill after you lodge your tax return. And one reason a business can get into major cash flow problems is not planning for income tax payable. And allow me to give you a little bit of an example with this. So it's your first year of business. You haven't, you know, you're earning your income. You haven't put away any tax. You go and lodge your first year's income tax return for the business, and you're faced with a debt. It makes it very difficult to move forward into your second year of business when you've got a debt hanging over your head, because obviously you have to keep paying those bills that are going to come up in that second year, but you've got that debt that's hanging over your head from year one. So this is why we talk a lot around pay-as-you-go instalments. So let's look at this example that's on your screen at the moment. It demonstrates the benefits of providing your own tax as soon as you start making a profit in your business. So in this example, look, Cassie started operating her joinery business as a sole trader in 2016. In 2017, the business made a profit of that $45,000 that's sitting down there. After lodging a 2017 income tax return in April 2018, Cassie received a notice of assessment from the ATO showing a tax payable amount of $8,550, which must be paid by May 2018. So as you can see, she's going to have those amounts of money hanging over her head if she didn't get into pay-as-you-go instalments. So when in the first quarter of the payment for 2018-19, it equated to, her tax equated to $2,250. So it's an interesting way to be able to sort of map out when your tax is due. We're going to talk about the ATO app in just a tick. I have noticed there's a few names that have come back to these webinars, so it's great to have you back on board. So I'll try and find a few extra different things to pull out in regards to that ATO app, so you're not just hearing it all again. But the ATO app, to begin with, will be able to tell you how much tax that you'll need to put away throughout the year in relation to how much you're earning. Okay, so with Cassie, let's go back to Cassie. So Cassie's, she should have put away $8,550 for, you know, the second quarter, $9,450 for the third, and $2,250 for the fourth quarter. So that actually means when she lodges her tax return, $20,250 is what she owes in tax. That's pretty hard moving into your second year of business, having that hanging over your head. So that's the real benefits of pay-as-you-go instalments. All right, so in relation to sole traders, look, you can use My Tax, which sits within the ATO Online. So if you're a sole trader, you can lodge and meet all your tax and super obligations via MyGov. If you're a partnership, a company or a trust, you can register for MyGov ID. So there's MyGov and there's MyGov ID. And it's really important to be able to make those observations that they're two different platforms. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to place a link or two links into the chat box in relation to MyGov ID and linking to what we Relationship Authorisation Manager. So if you do want to lodge online for a partnership, a company or a trust, you will need to register for MyGov ID. And so basically all MyGov ID is proving who you are and how you're associated to that business, and linking to RAM is basically you're getting the keys to the door to your portal, and that's probably the best way that I can describe that. All right, so if you are a sole trader, this is, sorry, MyGov. Even I get it wrong. So you head into MyGov and this is the view that you're going to get. So you just go to tax and you just go down to manage, okay? And then you're going to enter pay-as-you-go installments. So you can actually enter yourself voluntarily. You're going to place all these details in relation to giving you a bit of an idea of how much you need to put away per quarter. And this is obviously the business portal. So this is what you're going to be looking at if you're going to be in a partnership, a company or a trust. Okay, so they're the difference, MyGov and MyGov ID. So with the business portal, what you need to do is go into payment options and then select an account. And then from there, you'll be able to look at your payment options. And at the bottom of this screen, you're going to actually get your payment options there. So you can see your EFT code, which we often refer to that as a PRN number, a payment reference number. So all your details are available in your MyGov and in your MyGov ID account. Okay, so look, let's have a little bit of a look in relation to your next step. So we've talked about what triggers your commitments in step one. So let's go and have a little bit of a look at step two. So many financial commitments, look, they've got a cycle, and understanding and keeping track of your lodgement and your payment obligations will help you plan your cash needs and ensure that you pay on time. So many people, look, they use a simple wall calendar, and my life is lost if I don't go by my dear old wall calendar. You can also use a diary or a planner to and when they're due. You might find those calendars on your smartphones, they're great because they give you a little bit of a notification of when things are due. Now, the ATO app, that's got a key date section in it, okay? So if you do want to register for the ATO app, if you haven't already, allow me just to pick up a link for you. I won't be long whilst I do that. Okay, so I've gone and put that into the chat box for you. The ATO app is a free app. It's a software or an app that the ATO can't look into, otherwise that would be a breach of privacy. And you can record your income, your expenses, record your business related kilometres and take photos of your receipts within the My Deductions side of the app. But outside of that, we've got lots of tools on the app that can assist you. So you've got your key dates, which is always a bonus when you know, you're working full on, you've got perhaps you might have a family, you know, you've got your commitments, and to be able to get a bit of a reminder that your BAS is going to be due is going to help you. All right, so you would set it up like this. So if you've got personal tax, perhaps you're super managed super fund, you may be a sole trader, a partnership or a company, and company and trusts work in a very similar fashion in regards to the app. So that's why they haven't put the trust on there. So what you would do is you would say, yes, my company lodges a return. Company might be registered for GST, and maybe your company may pay directors. So it's going to ask you that important information to be able to work out what your key dates are going to be that you're going to need to meet. Now, your key date section obviously looks very similar to your normal calendar that you're going to be using on your smartphone, and you can set that up via your settings button there. And obviously you're going to hit the yes, I'd like a reminder button. All right, if you are using the ATO app, I'm just going to add, just outside of the presentation, if you do use ATO app, don't forget to back it up, okay? Get in a nice healthy habit of when you're spending money into that expenditure, into your My Deductions, and also at the same time, head back up to the backup button, and it's a very clear little circle at the top of your screen within the ATO app. All right, let's talk the Small Business Newsroom. So the Small Business Newsroom is a space where it's again going to ask you questions in relation to, do you employ people? Are you registered for GST? Are you registered for car fringe benefit taxes? Depends what you're registered for. The newsroom is actually going to tailor information to be able to deliver to you once a month in your email. So it's not spam. It's a nice little succinct piece of information that you can run your eyes over and get yourself across all the latest in tax and superannuation information to cut down on your administration time. And obviously the Small Business Newsroom has got that key dates section as well. Now, portal, if you've got MyGov ID and you're linked to RAM, you can also see when your obligations are due. Okay, so you just head to your activity statement, use that left-hand menu, and let me tell you, I have pressed all the buttons in this portal and I haven't broken it yet. So don't be afraid to break it, just go in there and have a really good look, have good play, so you can feel comfortable with using the portal. But in that activity statement section, it's going to give you those due dates. So if you're in the situation, you know, particularly in COVID, and you are struggling to lodge your activity statement on time, you may be struggling to pay your activity statements on time, don't hesitate to contact us, and you can do that via your mail function on the left-hand side of that menu. Send us a new message. So send us a secure mail message and just let us know, look guys, you know, having issues with payment and with lodging, what can you do for me? Alternatively, you can give us a call on 132866. So I'm just going to pop that into the chat box now. So that's the main business number. If you do need to call us on that Saturday, don't hesitate just to check to make sure that we're open so we don't waste your time. All right, so let's have a look at step 3, because I mean step 2 is already done. It's talking about those key dates. So we've talked about the triggers, we've talked about when those triggers are going to happen, so those due dates, and once you've completed these first 2 steps of identifying your commitments and recording when they're due, you've literally made a really solid start to future financial planning, which is, look, that's all part of small business, because as I keep saying to people, 60% of small businesses fail in the first 3 years, and it does come down to record keeping. And that part of that record keeping is recording when things are actually due. Because if you don't lodge when things are due, you can sometimes get a penalty. You may be subjected to penalties and general interest charges. So that's something that you want to avoid. Now, look, this is a little icon to say if there are any questions, don't hesitate to come through the chat box. More than happy to get them answered for you. All right, so look, let's have a little bit of a look at the shoebox. So how do you store your records? And don't be afraid, come on down via the chat box. I've seen a very interesting mix of record keeping, and in particular when I was sitting in the auditing seats that I've previously sat in. You know, you have people that proudly show you their records stuffed into the glove box of the ute. We've got the console of the ute that's full of screwed up bits of faded thermal paper that, you know, at the end of the financial year, they're not going to be much good for you because you don't actually know how much you spent and what it was on, so you can't use it. So a lot of people, box mentality, these types of webinars try and educate along the lines of get into that healthy habit, do your tax on the go. And I mean, I've spoken to you about this all through this series of webinars with the Northern Beaches Council in relation to the importance of tax on the go. So if you can enter your expenditures and your income, you know, throughout the year, do regular record keeping. And when we say regular, retail's usually daily or weekly. If you're a contractor, perhaps, you know, you might be looking at that fortnightly or monthly. You may as well. But what we do say, the more regular you keep your records, the more accurate your records are going to be. And it also means you're not going to undercut yourself with your deductions because you've been able to store everything successfully, whether it be via paper or whether it be digitally. And so you're not going to miss out on those due deductions. So record keeping systems, they come in all different sorts and forms, okay? You can go through, you can do paper, manual, you know, cash books, ledgers, that sort of thing. Perhaps you may like to go electronic, so that may involve getting an accounting software. May I suggest that if you do go down that accounting software path, that you would look for something that you can trial. So I'm a big believer of try before you buy. So they're questions that you would ask software companies to see what's going to suit you. And another big reason behind that is what purchase accounting software if a lot of that software you're not going to use. So are you purchasing something? Are you spending more money on something that you don't need to? So they're all the valuable types of questions that you would be asking your software company if you chose to bring software into your business. This is a great little tool on ato.gov.au, the record keeping evaluation tool. So it's going to again ask you a few questions. It's going to ask you how you're storing your records, what you're registered for, and it's going to come back to you with ideas in relation to how you can keep better records for you, because everyone's different. We run our lives, we run our businesses differently. So this is the type of tool that can actually come in and say, yeah, perhaps you could try this, or perhaps you could try that. And I've had a lot of small business clients come back to me and they've all turned around and said, you know, I kind of thought the record keeping evaluation tool, yeah, whatever, but it actually came back with some really good suggestions, and it saved me time and it saved me money, and lodging tax and meeting my taxation and superannuation obligations is a lot easier now because the tool suggested lots of different ways that they can keep their records, therefore they're able to budget for their commitments. Okay, so let's have a little bit of a look at simple accounting. So a sole trader with obviously simple accounts can use the My Deductions tool in the ATO app, as I was mentioning to you. It's free, it supports Windows phones as well as both Android and iOS, and complies with the ATO rules and regulations. So with the ATO app, I won't go into it a lot because I can see million names on this webinar, but what I will say is that if you record your expenses and your income, your kilometres throughout the year, it's going to head to the cloud. If you're an individual sole trader, you can download that information from the cloud and automatically pre-fill your income tax return via MyGov. If you're a partnership, a company or a trust, the information will come down from the cloud in an Excel spreadsheet format. So that means you can either A, lodge the tax return yourself from the data, or B, you can send that Excel spreadsheet off to your accountant. And the same works for a sole trader as well. If you're using an accountant, you can actually bring that data down from the cloud in that Excel spreadsheet format and send it off to your accountant. All right, so let's have a chat about accounts itself. So as your business grows, you may need to use different accounting software to obviously handle the different various complexities. There are a lot of software providers to choose from. Go out there, ask those big questions and say, this is the type of business I'm running. What's going to make it easier? What's the easiest method? And the easiest type of software that I can use so I can better my business. And what type of reports do you need from your software? So do you need any sort of cash, any sort of reports that the bank may want to see, profit and loss statements, for example, if you want to borrow money from the bank. So that's a conversation to weigh up in certain words in relation to do you go and pay, if you know you're going to need a loan for your business, do you go and pay somebody else to run those reports for you? Or alternatively, can you print those reports out of your accounting software? So is that going to save you time and money down the track? Or perhaps, you only need that one loan, so you're quite happy to go and pay someone to do that, and that's more than fine as well. So lots of different softwares. You would have heard of these, the MyObs, the Xeros and the QuickBooks. There's plenty more out there. A lot of people often come back to me and say, well, how do I know which accounting software is for me and which one's good? So I'm a big Google person. I Google everything. I like to, more often than not, us humans, we will place bad reviews before we place good reviews. So have a look at those reviews on the net. See what people are saying, and also look at what type of industry that they're in, because some accounting software is going to suit one industry but may not suit the other industry. So again, these are all the types of questions that you would be asking your software providers if you choose to go down that path. All right, so look, what I'm going to do, I'm going back to Deb at Northern Beaches Council, and in between, take this opportunity to send me any questions via the chat box. But Deb's going to tell us in relation to what Northern Beaches Council can do for you as a business, the support that they've got on hand, and what's coming up in their program of work. So back to you, Deb.
Thanks, Lyndon. Yeah, so a few of you might have already heard me speaking about this, but Northern Beaches Council, we were quite quick when the pandemic was announced to look at what fees and charges we applied to small businesses, and where we could to cut those. So particularly things like outdoor dining, which you've extended through till the end of a year, and inspections, also for our tenant businesses. So trying to reduce where we could some of those financial burdens, and also the hardship policy for rates, which includes business rate pays as well. So again, if there's a way that council can support you with any of those touch points, I'm happy to reach out to me and see if we can help reduce some of those financial burdens. But the other key role that council really has is in connecting businesses. So we've created a business to business support hub where we have a range of local support providers, from accountants, lawyers, digital marketing experts, HR consultants, who are putting together a directory of what services they can offer impacted businesses. So whether you're an impacted business, maybe a retailer, or one of those businesses that provide those services, again, encourage you to go onto our B2B hub and register your detail or connect to one of those local service providers. We've also been trying to look at some of the success stories in our local business community, and we've done a short series of 5 businesses who have been quite successful in pivoting the way that they've operated during COVID to continue to connect with their business customers, and maybe change some of the ways they've been operating. So that can give hopefully a bit of inspiration to the rest of the wider business community. And also, as we're coming up towards Christmas, we're looking at a program to help with businesses, particularly bricks and mortar businesses, with their digital presence, so that they can continue to connect to customers and maybe improve their online presence and sales as we gear up to the Christmas shopping period. So I will be sending out an email with my details, the newsletter that we send out regularly to businesses. So I encourage you to connect through that and stay connected to council during this time. I'll hand back to you now, Lyndon.
Fantastic, thanks, Deb. Hey, Deb, just quickly, what have you got in the pipeline line for New South Wales Small Business Month in October? Have you been briefed on that?
Yeah, so we are putting together an event and we're just finalising the speakers. I don't know if some of you are local residents, you might be aware of what we call our Big Idea Forum that we run out of Glen Street Theatre. Usually this would be an audience of 200 people. We're going to go virtual, so we have a production space at the back of the Glen Street Theatre, and we're hoping to get a lead economist and a couple of our community reps, including some of those businesses who have successfully pivoted, to join a panel to talk about what they're doing to build resilience and future proofing during Small Business Month. And again, Small Business Month is New South Wales wide, and because most people are doing virtual events, I'm sure there'll be a dozen or more webinars you might be interested in. So I encourage people to go to the Small Business Month website and have a look at all the wealth of information that'll be happening during October.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something, there is a lot of stuff happening around town.
Yeah.
I've been liaising with a lot of our country councils, all the way out to Broken Hill. We've hit Wagga, we're going up north, and we're heading down south because, as you know, through the droughts, the bushfires, the floods, and now COVID, we're trying to extend as much as support as what we can. And that New South Wales website, I had a bit of a look at it the other day in relation to who's doing what around New South Wales. And some of it is actually not some of it, a lot of it is looking very inviting. So may I encourage you to head along to Services New South Wales and check out what's happening in October. And don't forget, events are still being loaded. So I'm still locking in with councils and chambers and external collaborators in relation to what we can bring from an ATO perspective. And I'm sure Northern Beaches will continue different bits and pieces in relation to how you're going to celebrate Small Business Month.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, so look, let's head on in. Let's keep driving. We need to head into step 3. So step 3 is gathering your figures. And obviously the figures regularly from the records you keep, and it's all about estimating the total amount you need to set aside to meet your future commitments. So how can you do that? Well, the cash flow canvas is one way that you can do this. And Deb would have sent out the handouts to today's session, and you'll see a copy of the cash flow canvas in there. So the ATO, look, it's got an entire section dedicated to the cash flow for small business success. And if you've attended that, you may have seen this tool. So that session uses the entire canvas to analyse business cash flow and explains in detail how to complete each section. So here we're going to use just the middle section of the canvas to focus on recording and gathering figures and estimating your total future tax and super commitments. So let's look briefly at how this section on the canvas works. So this section on the canvas, look, it's well named. So the cash in boxes allow you to split your income into different types, gather your cash in figures from your cash receipts records. The cash out section, that provides boxes which allows you to split your expenses into their major categories, gather your cash out figures from your cash payment records and your wage if you're an employer. The cash surplus section shows whether you have obviously surplus cash. And the yellow sections itemise your regular tax and super financial commitments, and that's what we're going to fill in right now. So look, I mentioned a number of free tools that you may like to use to work out your tax and your super commitments, and I'll reinforce them as we go through this section. So the canvas has all Cassie's figures. So the section is GST on sales. When working out her GST, look, she can use the GST calculator on the government ASIC Money Smart website. Cassie's GST on sales is $200. Now, the next cell in the yellow section is her GST on purchases, which comes to $5. So to work out the pay-as-you-go withholding figure for her wages, she can use the ATO app or the business portal to access the tax withheld calculator on that. And the pay-as-you-go withholding figure for Cassie, well, that's going to equate to $113. Now, to work out how much super she has to pay her employees, Cassie can access the Super Guarantee Contributions tool, again through the ATO app or the business portal. It calculates compulsory super contributions using the current superannuation guarantee rate. So the super amount's $87 because Cassie pays the standard 9.5%. Now, for the purpose of this exercise, the income tax component has been calculated at 25%. So 25% of the cash surplus is going to be $238. So when she calculates the total of her tax figures in the you're going to see here at the bottom right corner that's $633. So she needs to put that away this week so she knows she can meet her future commitments. So again, it's all around that budgeting. So regardless which tool you actually use to gather your figures regularly, ideally you're going to do it as regular as what I was saying before, retail, weekly, daily or weekly, maybe a contractor weekly, fortnightly or monthly. So the more regular that you can do it, the better off it's going to be for you. Now look, again, if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to come through the chat box. Deb, you're going to find a message in there from Bridget. Hello, Bridget. It's great to have you back. Don't hesitate to come on down via the chat box if you've got any questions for me. All right, let's keep driving on in. So as you guessed, step 4, it's all about banking habits. And a good way to safeguard against spending money earmarked for your future commitments is setting up separate bank accounts. And obviously, therefore, physically set that money aside from your everyday transaction business account. So in the demonstration, Cassie would move her $633 out of her day-to-day business account into her banking account, open specifically to hold the money that needs to be paid out in the future. Now, many people do this in their everyday lives, regardless of whether they've got a small business. So you might even have a separate bank account to save for your holidays or perhaps Christmas presents, a university fund for the kids, and it's the same principle. So money that you want or you need to save for for a dedicated purpose can be easier if it's in a separate bank. So don't be afraid to host those conversations with your bank to see what sort of deal that they can offer you. Now, allow me to place my auditing hat on and I'll give you a compliance spin. So if your income tax return is identified by the Australian Taxation Office for whatever, what we are going to ask to look at are your bank statements. Now, it can be very, very painful going through a bank statement if you've got private and business on there. So you're literally going to have to go through with a highlighter and highlight all your business transactions. It's a real time chewer. And B, from an auditor's point of view, I don't want to see what you're doing in your private life until I ask for that. Okay, and that's when I would be looking into your private living expenses. So on the surface, keep a separate bank account for the simple fact that if you're registered for GST, have a GST account, and you'll find some banks have actually got GST holding accounts. Wages for the tax, that's great to have another bank account for that. And, you may even have your expenses account and your spending account. So have a bit of a think about it, have a bit of a chat with your banks. And as I was saying, with this whole tax on the go, your banking apps are on here. So you know straight away in regards to how much is in each account. So again, commitments. All right, so look, we do have a bit more information on the bank research that we've done around that. So I'll bring up that screen for you now. Don't hesitate to have a bit of a read through that. And what I am going to do is just reinforce that account fees are a common reason for people to only have one account. However, with a bit of research, look, it's easy to find accounts that don't charge you fees, particularly if you operate your account online rather than visit a branch. Some banks even offer those GST holding accounts. So it's really worth asking that, because I find a lot of businesses aren't across that. So, again, don't be afraid to put up your hand and ask those questions to the stakeholders that you're dealing with, whether it be accounting software or it be your local bank. Perhaps it's your council, perhaps it's your state or your federal governments. We're all willing to be able to answer your questions for you. Okay, so that's the first 4 steps, all right? And in regards to those first 4 steps, let's talk about paying on time. So if you're anything like me, I can't stand those late fees. They really irk me. So I try and pay my accounts on times. But, you know, sometimes life just gets in the way and we forget. Let's look back at Cassie, okay? So Cassie transfers money out of her financial commitments bank account to pay by the due date. She follows her plan she mapped in step 2, and she makes sure that she meets the due dates using the funds she set aside in her separate bank account in step 4. And you know what? You can do this too. If you meet your commitments on time, you can take advantage of discounts for early or on-time payments, avoid any late payment penalties and general interest charges, and avoid legal action or loss of business protection. It also helps maintain or build your business reputation and just avoid that financial stress. Sometimes, you know what, even the best laid plans, they come unstuck. So it's important, if this happens and you can't meet a commitment, discuss the issue with your creditors, maybe other businesses, regulatory bodies, including the ATO, before it becomes a problem. And that's what I was saying earlier in the webinar. Don't leave it to the last minute. Try and do it early and reach out and ask for help. If you do need of help, you can also use the ATO app or online services to access the payment plan estimator, which we went through with the business portal on this couple of screens earlier. And the payment plan estimator, look, you can help work out an affordable payment plan for your circumstances. And look, during COVID, we reckon at the end of March, federal government came out and said, we're all in lockdown. We're all going to receive our restrictions to try and stop the spread of the pandemic. And obviously on the 27th of March, around the same time, AusKey was hardwired to end. So the software for the business portal was no more. So that's why we needed to transition businesses across onto the MyGov ID platform. But what came with that, what resulted, was businesses, many businesses, let me tell you, just lodged for prior years, and they all lodged at once because they needed to apply for JobKeeper, and perhaps they were eligible for the cash flow boost. So that in turn saw a lot of debt arise on taxation accounts. So that's kind of left a lot of businesses in a bit of a pickle because they've, gone onto the payment plan estimator and they've realised that, they can't pay an upfront fee or an upfront amount that's suggested by the payment plan estimator, or perhaps you've called the ATO and we've given you an upfront payment and you can't reach that. You know what? It's always better off to turn back around to the ATO and just say, hey, look, I'm struggling. I can't pay that upfront payment. I need to be able to get into a payment arrangement that's going to suit me. It's going to suit my needs, because we don't know how long the pandemic's going to go for, and we don't know what the future is going to be. So again, going back to that old saying, don't be afraid to reach out, because we are here to support and guide you through this and ask those big questions. All right, so what action could you take to set yourself up about financial commitments and more time to focus on growing your business? So in the handout that Deb sent out, look, it already has some tasks for you to put timeframes against, as well as room to write other tasks that can help meet your financial commitments. And if you need help with record keeping, look, the ATO are always running different types of small business webinars. The Northern Beaches councils are bringing you a large variety of those small business webinars. So we do talk a lot around record keeping, how to do it easily, how to do it quickly, and how to do it at a low cost. And as I said, that's a large chunk of running your small business. Okay, so look, the ATO, we're everywhere. We're all across Facebook, we're across Twitter, we're across LinkedIn. Got lots of how-tos on YouTube. And how-tos are a great little tool if you want to know how can I budget better for my financial commitments? How do I register for MyGov ID if I'm a partnership, a company or a trust? How do I link to RAM? How do I fill out an activity statement? Also, there's another fantastic webinar that's just hit the ATO space, and I'm sure Northern Beaches Council will be looking at bringing this one to you as well. We've just released our Considering Your Business Viability tool. So this is where you would place in the last couple of years of your figures for your business, and the tool's going to ask you a few questions. Now, after those questions have been asked and answered, the tool's going to come back and give you a snapshot in relation to where you're going really, really well in your business, and perhaps where you could improve. And it's going to offer you some suggestions in relation to how you can improve your small business. But look, that's it from me. I will hand you back to Deb. I'll keep an eye on the chat box. A massive thanks to the Northern Beaches Council. It's been great to collaborate with you once again. I actually really look forward to my Wednesdays at 1:30 to be able to catch up with the Northern Beaches Council. And again, if you have any questions after this seminar, don't hesitate to send me an email. I'll leave you with my email address now. More than happy to assist you any way I can. But look, my name's Lyndon Regina, and I'm signing out from the Australian Taxation Office, budgeting for your small business commitments. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Lyndon. And as we were saying before, this is part of a series of webinars, and certainly that one around business viability tool, I think that would be really important. So we'll definitely try and add that to our program. So we do have a couple more webinars coming up. We've got one next week on managing your cash flow, and then the one after that is becoming an employer. So that will be our suite of 8 webinars that we've ran during August and September, taking us up to October tax time. So I'm hoping these are quite informative. As I said, we are recording them. We're putting them up on our website, so I'll put that link through. Hopefully we'll get this one up in the next day or two. It takes a little while just to tweak it and upload it. But again, great for people to try and stay connected. I am just going to put a quick poll up if you could just take a moment. Like I say, we're quite new to doing these webinars online, so it'd be great to get feedback just how satisfied you are with today's webinar. And again, feel free to email me if you've got specific comments or topics that you really would like to hear about as well. So I'll put my email in the in this address as well, but you should have got the economy email for me today, just if you want to reach out with any comments or feedback. It's very much appreciated. But thanks everyone for coming along today, and we'll be sending out an email shortly. So hope to speak to you all and maybe see you at next week's webinar. Speak to you then. Thank you. Bye.